Mum and Dad see the relevance in the art
No.
of it? They just didn't see it? They hated it?
Hated it. Hate graffiti.
Was that like, did that impact your relationship with them long term?
Yeah, it has done, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot better now, but it did do for a long time. For a long, long time.
And I think you'll be the only one that suffers that. I mean, there's a nonchalance to a lot of these conversations, but people out there that do graph and do it to a level, I'm sure these back end
It
impacts
happens a lot. Not, some writers don't care. Some writers' parents don't care. Some people don't care what their parents think, and that's fine. That's up to you. But don't expect everyone to be the same as you. So it did have a big effect on me, and it's something that you never forget. Not because it was particularly bad or anything. I didn't get beaten up or any of that kind of stuff. We were kind of lucky that there was three of us that got sent down together. And when you go to jail and there's three of you and you've got two co-Ds, already you're crewed up, aren't you?
Yeah.
So you're like, a lot of people are in jail on their own. So straight away when there's three of you, they're like, well, there's three of them.
Yeah.
I'm not. If I start on one, then I'm starting on all three. So generally, we got left alone because we were our own little unit. And we got to know people, and it was mad. We turned out there was people in there that were friends with people in PWS, and one guy lived across the road from Kicker PWS, and this and that. And there was other people like, oh yeah, my mate writes so and so. Do you know him? And I was like, yeah, I know him.
It must have been a mad time because they were really pulling in people. Like BTP would. This was
this era where they first started really bagging writers.
So we were talking like 95, 90s.
Mid-90s, yeah.
Yeah.
And the way that they would really get these sentences was quite ridiculous because the damage that you would get charged for, like every charge you had for graffiti would have like a bill with it almost. They were saying that charge is for £16,314. That charge is for 32,000, whatever. You think, okay, right, hang on. When I got done, I had 5 main charges, and I had 37 other charges to be taken into consideration. Because they were working on it for 11 months. They were going around.
On it.
Yeah, they were tracking.
That's a lot, though.
They were tracking us down. But getting back to the point of the money, I had one charge, and they said that one charge was £120,000. One charge, and that was one night was when they had the train strikes back in 93 and 92, 93. We used to take advantage of them, like a lot of writers did. And there was one night where 2 whole cars got done and about 4 panels. Now you're telling me it costs £120,000 to clean 2 whole cars and 4 panels? It doesn't. But what they used to do is they would charge you for the loss of revenue while that train was being cleaned, and that was how they calculated that cost. So you're getting done for £120,000 worth of damage. It's not £120,000 worth of damage. It's whatever plus your loss of revenue. But the judge don't care about, does he? The judge just looks at that and goes, £120,000.
Yeah.
You're in trouble, son.
Yeah.
Especially when you've got 37 TICs as well. So they didn't really have a lot of option. We were stupid and young at that point as well. When they raided us, they got everything. They had photos of us doing trains. They had tons of paint, nozzles, outlines, the works. We couldn't. There was no way we were getting out of it. But so we were made an example of. Really, didn't really work, but that's what they were trying to do. I mean, we were unlucky as well because they had one of the BTP officers from our local BTP was in the London Graff Squad at one point. So he knew the crack.
Right.
Whereas the local BTP were like, oh, what's all this spraying on trains? They didn't get it. And he was like, these lads are in a crew together. See these 3 letters? That's a crew. And he's this and he's that. And they, and he helped them put it all together.
And this was a time where that stuff just was not...
It wasn't rife like it is now.
Widely known, yeah.
No, it was starting to become known. Graff had been around for a few years and people had done trains, but the 90s was when the trains started getting really hammered, wasn't it? With the people on the South Coast who we've mentioned already, and in London, obviously, always and forever. But yeah, it was pretty mad times back then. It was good times.
Did you enjoy it?
Best times of your life.
You always say they enjoy it, no matter how much...
no matter how many times you got arrested, you know, because we used to get nicked all the time for the amount of things we got away with. You know,
Did the racking come into play as well?
Yeah, because as other people have said on this show, if you didn't rack in the 90s, you couldn't be a prolific graffiti writer unless you had super rich parents. If you wanted to get up and do and paint every other day, or
you needed them.
You had to rack. There was absolutely no option whatsoever. We used to go racking every single Saturday daytime because we were at college and school and things like that in the week. We used to bunk off and, you know, you go and rack a few cans in your lunch break and stuff sometimes. But I say every Saturday we had our routines and we had set routes. We had the Oxford route.
Yeah.
We had the Guildford route.
I was about to say, actually from where you're situated, there's a lot of
we
scope.
could go in all different areas. So we could rotate them so that by the time you got back round to that route again, you hadn't been there for a little while and it had calmed down again a bit. And you look back now and you think, how the hell did a bunch of teenagers get away with doing that? We used to go into this shop, several shops. You know, every route that we had, we would have 3 or 4 towns on it, and there might be 2, 3 or 4 paint shops in every town. That's why we'd target them. And you'd go there, and there'd be 4 of us. We used to go in a team of 4. 2 people who would go in, rack as much as they could, come out. The other 2 would then go in, rack as much as they could, come out. The first 2 would then go back in again about 15 minutes later, rack another load, get as much as they could, and come back out again.
But didn't they get recognised? Didn't they?
The thing we used to do that, and we never, you know,
you suddenly see the stuff off the shelves gone.
Well, I think there's a lot of the time in these paint shops on a Saturday, they were normally quite busy. They were dealing with customers. You should take advantage of that. Yeah. You'd cover each other and do all the racking tricks that the people out there who've done it know. I mean, in some paint shops, the paint would be in such a stupid place. You'd think, thanks for putting it there. You know, there was one, like I remember, where the paint was at the back of the shop, underneath the stairs.
I'll take that, thank you very much.
So we used to just go in there and clear it out, you know, and just take as much as you could carry. And you'd be walking out the shop.
That's mad.
We used to go and rack more bags from Woolworths because we had so much paint, we didn't have enough bags to carry it home.
We're talking about these pick and mix bags, baby. We're talking about the big bags. Before IKEA.
Woolworths used to sell like your travel bags and stuff like that. When we'd go and rack a load of them just to put more paint in so that we'd carry it home. And we were racking like every Saturday between the 4 of us, at least 100 cans every Saturday.
Well, that's still not a lot of paint, you know. When you think about it between 4 people.
I know, but I'm just saying, at least 100. 100 cans would be a bad day, you know. On a good day, you might get 200 cans.
But I'm putting it in context because I'm joking and saying, well, fucking, that's a lot, and you get away with it. But when you think about it actually being 4 people, you do need a lot of paint to be able to do
that might be that might be 25 cans. That might be 25 cans. But that's 25 cans each for the week. And plus, remember, you did it the week before, and every week you're doing different amounts of stuff.
Yeah.
We were painting most nights, but some nights it would only be a can of black and a can of chrome, wouldn't it? And that would all be all you're taking out. So it wasn't like we were doing, but we might go and not do burners. We were trying to do burners at that point. We weren't that good, but every Sunday we might go to a Hall of Fame, or we would come up to London and go to Tufnell and Ladbroke Grove and wherever, you know.
Can I just say at this point, I used to love Tufnell Hall of Fame.
Tufnell was the best.
That was so good. And underrated as well, man. You know what I mean?
What I liked about Tufnell, I know we're digressing a bit now, but it was always a nice vibe up there.
That's right.
I don't know what about it. It was like everyone was super chilled, even though, like, you know, loads of DDS and that were all from around that area, but they didn't really seem to mind too much about us going up there and doing stuff. They're probably thinking, I'll take it out tomorrow. But we didn't care. We just wanted to do our piece at Tufnell, take a photo and go home. You know, and we used to speak to Sub and Petro and people like that. And it was a good place for everyone to meet. You know, the writers from Essex would come in, the writers from, north of London, so PWS territory and beyond would come in. Writers from South Coast and Kent and whatever, and everyone would sort of, you know, meet up, and you'd meet loads of people there. You know, I've lost it now, but I used to have a black book that I used to take up there, and I had everyone in it, absolutely everyone. The amount of people that I met there, you know, one day Drax would be down and with Robbo and things like that, and then the next weekend you'd go there and like Act and TBF would be there and people like that. and then another time you go there and
Mad.
you know, React and the Essex Boys, and that would be them. It was great, you know, real good, really good times back then. Used to really enjoy coming up to London, just to learn as well, you know, because eventually I stopped painting in London. Not really for any particular reason. I was quite happy with painting locally. I think I sort of started learning my trade in London to a degree, you know, coming up
in
here
set
and
skills of like how things.
well, just seeing how things were done. You know, you'd
yeah.
ride around, you'd go to different halls of fame, and you'd see. So, because locally there wasn't that much stuff for me to learn from. There was magazines, but we started going up to London because we know people were telling you about places, and then things like visual graphics, and that came out. You know, shouts to Kilo for doing that because.
Putting videos out quick, please. Hurry up.
I'd love to see some of those again. There's a couple on YouTube, but they're great, you know.
Yeah.
But they, you know, we found out about loads of places in London that from there, you know, it would be like Crystal Palace, West Ham, and we'd be like, oh, there's a place at Crystal Palace. Didn't know about that. Let's go down there. I mean, some weekends we'd just be taking photos and be we'd bomb on our way in and bomb on our way out, but we didn't always do a piece. Sometimes we'd just be the graph tourist taking the photos, learning our trade. And after a few years, you know, I stopped coming up here, and I think I probably had a bit of time out, you know, from graph. I think, you know, because I'm into loads of stuff, not just graffiti. And then I started just painting more locally. But yeah, I've learnt a lot from the London boys. You know, DDS would definitely be one of the main inspirations for me.
Just the intensity of the work.
Yeah.
I mean,
they're just real deal. You knew as soon as you see them, you just know it was real deal, didn't you? You know,
and still is the case. And I'm not. I mean, there are others, obviously,
of course, yeah.
But there was something about DDS that it was almost like the folklore was so entrenched, and how they all formed in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's still
great. You know, great, Chris. So they've changed. They've changed and evolved. They've got loads of new members or whatever. But, I mean, I don't think there's no writer in this country would dispute what a great crew they are and how influential they are. You know.